The bridge of the U's harmony was quiet, except for the soft hum of computers. Captain Kim Soo stood by the big window, watching huge alien ships float past them in space. These ships were amazing to look at. The Altarian ships were smooth and shiny, and they could actually bend space around them. The Vorthok ships looked like they were made of crystal and had weapons that could break apart moons. The strangest ones were the Kaleri ships that seemed to be alive, beating like giant hearts. "This still feels like a dream," said Lieutenant Park Jin from his seat at the communication controls. 6 months since we joined the coalition, and I still can't believe Earth is really part of this. Kim Soo nodded. He understood how Park Jin felt. When Earth first asked to join the Galactic Defense Coalition, many alien species had argued against it. Human technology was very basic compared to what the aliens had. Human ships used fusion power while aliens had learned to use zero-point energy. Human weapons shot simple metal bullets while aliens used exotic matter that could destroy anything. "Captain, we're getting a message from Coalition Command," Park Jin said. The air in front of them shimmered, and suddenly they could see Fleet Admiral Vexmore of the Altarian High Command. He was tall, with skin that looked like it was made of crystal. His face showed that he didn't think much of humans. "Terran ships. You will go to Grid Sector 7 Alpha. Fly in patrol patterns. And tell us if you see anything strange. Your ... abilities make you good for early warning work." Kim Soo's jaw got tight, but he kept his voice calm and professional. "We understand, Admiral. The human fleet will move to that position." When the message ended, Engineer Lee Hanna looked up from her computer. "Screen Grid 7 Alpha is the very edge of our defense area. They're basically putting us out there to get hit first." "Maybe," Kim Soo said, looking at the tactical screen that showed all the ships and defense positions. "But every good defense needs soldiers on the front line, and humans have always been good at standing their ground." The Coalition's defense system was huge, covered 12 different star systems, and each ring of defense was more advanced than the one before it. The outer edge, where humans were being sent, was thought to be the least important. After all, no enemy had ever gotten past the 4th ring of defense in over 3,000 years. Suddenly, Lieutenant Commander Yoon Dae's face appeared on their communications screen. It was calling from the destroyer Resilience that was flying. "Nearby, Captain Kim, our deep space sensors are picking up some weird readings. It's probably nothing but ... But it's our job to check on nothing." Kim Soo finished the sentence. "All human ships, form up with us. Let's go see what's out there." As Kim Soo gave orders to his crew, he thought about how they had ended up here. Earth had been alone in space for so long. When they finally met other intelligent life, it was both exciting and scary. The aliens were so much more advanced that humans felt like children trying to play with adults. But humans had one thing that maybe the aliens didn't understand. They were stubborn. When humans decided to do something, they didn't give up easily. Even when things looked impossible, humans kept trying. The small group of Earth ships began moving toward the strange readings. The human fleet wasn't big or fancy. They had 12 destroyers, 8 cruisers, and 2 carriers. Compared to the massive alien fleets, they looked tiny and weak. "Lee Hanna, make sure all our weapons are ready," Kim Soo ordered. "Already on it, Captain," she replied. "Though if we run into something that got past all those alien superweapons, I'm not sure our simple guns will do much good. You'd be surprised." "What simple guns can do in the right hands," Kim Soo said with a small smile. The truth was, Kim Soo was nervous too. He had seen what the alien weapons could do. The Altarians could make black holes appear out of nowhere. The Vorthok had weapons that could make entire planets disappear. Kolri could grow new ships from seeds in just a few hours. But humans had something else. They had learned to fix things with whatever they had available. They had learned to fight dirty when they needed to. They had learned that sometimes the simplest solution was the best one. "Captain, the readings are getting stronger," Park Jin reported. "Whatever it is, it's big. Really big." Kim Soo looked out at the stars and wondered what they were about to face. He didn't know that in a few hours, the most advanced defense system in galactic history would start falling apart. He didn't know that species with technology beyond human understanding would. run away in fear. He didn't know that Earth's small, simple fleet was about to become the only thing standing between an ancient evil and the complete destruction of all life in the galaxy. All he knew was that they had a job to do, and humans didn't abandon their posts. The Deep Space Monitoring Station Vigilance floated quietly in the darkness between stars. Chief Operator Han Mi had always been proud of this station. When Earth first joined the Coalition, this had been their big project together, human engineering, mixed with alien technology to create something amazing. But now, as she stared at her computer screens, Han Mi wished she had never seen this place. "These readings can't be real," whispered Technician Cho Jun. His hands were shaking as he worked. At his controls, there are millions of them. Han Mi looked at the sensor displays and felt her blood turn cold. The screens showed a huge wave of objects coming out of hyperspace. Each one was about the size of a spaceship, but they moved in a way that made her skin crawl. They didn't fly like normal ships. Instead, they moved like they were alive, twisting and flowing like some kind of living tissue. And there were more of them appearing every second. "Get me Fleet Command right now," she ordered. Her voice sounded calm, but inside she felt like ice water was flowing through her body. "This is a priority Alpha emergency." The answer came very quickly. Admiral Vexmore's crystal face appeared on the screen. But this time he didn't look down on them with contempt. This time he looked worried and scared. "Monitoring Station Vigilance, please, confirm what you're seeing. What you're reporting should be impossible. Admiral, I'm sending you all our sensor." "Data right now," Han Mi said. "Whatever these things are, they're not in any of our databases. We've never seen anything like them before. And they're coming straight toward our defense grid." On the main display screen, they could see the first wave of strange objects reaching the Coalition's automated defense platforms. These platforms were incredibly powerful. They had energy shields that could stop asteroids from hitting them. They had weapons that could destroy entire fleets of enemy ships. They should have been more than enough to stop any attack. The platforms lasted only 17 minutes. "By the eternal light," Admiral Lexmore said in a quiet, shocked voice as they watched the destruction happen on their screens. "What are these creatures?" Han Mi was already running computer programs to analyze what was happening. She was scared. Her training took over. They learn. "Admiral, each platform they destroy teaches them something new. Get this?" She pointed to a section of the battle on her screen. The first platform's shields held up for 3 minutes. 10th platform only lasted 30 seconds. "They're getting better at fighting us while the battle is still happening." All across the Coalition's communication network, alarms were going off. Species that had never lost a battle in thousands of years were suddenly panicking. They were rushing to strengthen positions that they had always thought were impossible to attack. "All units fall back to Defense Ring 6, came an order from High Command. Repeat, all units pull back to Ring 6 immediately." But as Han Mi watched her screens, she noticed something that made her even more afraid. The enemy wasn't just learning how to fight their weapons. They were also learning how the Coalition liked to retreat. They seemed to know where the Coalition forces would go before they even got there. Suddenly, Captain Kim Soo's face appeared on her screen. He was calling from the human patrol fleet. "Vigilance. This is the Harmony. We're moving to fight the enemy's leading forces." "Captain, you don't understand," Han Mi said quickly and urgently. "These things learn from everything. Every ship they destroy makes them smarter and stronger. You need to..." Her transmission suddenly cut to static and noise. Something huge and terrible swept past the monitoring station's windows. Like it was part machine and part living creature, bigger than anything Han Mi had ever seen. When the screens came back on, she could see that half of the human patrol fleet was already gone. The other half were fighting desperately against an enemy unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen before. Han Mi felt sick as she realized what was happening. These weren't just enemy ships. These were something much worse. They were learning machines that got stronger every time they fought. They had probably been sleeping somewhere in deep space for thousands of years. And now they were awake and hungry. The Coalition had spent 3,000 years building the most advanced defense system in galactic history. They had energy shields and weapons that could crack planets. They had the combined knowledge and technology of dozens of advanced alien civilizations, and it was all falling apart in less than 20 minutes. Admiral Han Mi said into her communication device, "I think we need to warn everyone. These aren't just enemy ships. They're something that learns and adapts. They get stronger with every battle if they reach the inner systems." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Both she and Admiral Dexmore knew what it meant. If these creatures reached the populated worlds, billions of people would die. The Devourers had returned, and this time, no one was ready for them. The Coalition War Room was the loudest place in the galaxy. Representatives from dozens of different alien species were all shouting at once in their own languages. The big screens on the walls showed terrible news. Their defense rings were falling apart one by one. Just 3 days, 3,000 years of military planning had become completely useless. Admiral Kildong of Earth Space Forces stood quietly in the corner. His old, weathered face showed no emotion as he watched the panic around him. One after another, each alien species announced they were pulling their ships back to protect their home planets. "The Altarian Third Fleet is going back to our main systems," said Admiral Vexmore. His crystal-like face looked dull and defeated. "We cannot let our entire civilization die for a fight we cannot win." "The Vorthok Armada agrees," added General Hexville through her translation device. "Our computers show a 97.3% chance that we will lose completely if we stay and fight." One by one, all the great powers of the Coalition announced they were running away. The Kalari took their living bioships back to their home worlds. Zurithi pulled their reality-bending ships back to their dimensional fortresses. Even the Mordic, who were famous warriors, abandoned their fighting positions. Their proud military traditions were crumbling because they faced an enemy they couldn't understand. Finally, the shouting stopped, and everyone looked at Admiral Kildong. The human representative stepped forward. His simple military uniform looked very plain compared to the fancy clothes and armor that the aliens wore. "And what will Earth do?" asked High Coordinator Valtham. Her tentacles were moving nervously, showing how scared she was. "Earth will hold the line," Kildong said. In a simple, quiet voice, the room exploded with protests and shocked voices. Admiral Dexmore leaned forward, his voice sharp with disbelief. "Admiral, your species has less than 0.03% of our total military strength. This is not brave. This is suicide." Kildong's eyes became hard and cold. "Maybe it is suicide, but someone has to give time for all those civilian evacuations you're all so eager to start, and humans have never been good at giving up." On the big tactical screen, human fleet was already moving into position around something called the Terra Defense Grid. This was a quickly built barrier made of orbital platforms, asteroid bases, and old mining equipment that had been turned into weapons. It looked weak and pathetic compared to the sophisticated defenses that had already been destroyed. Commander Park SEO had volunteered to lead the first attack wave. Her destroyer ship Defiance was taking the most dangerous front position. "Admiral, we can see the enemy's leading ships. There. Dear God, they're huge." The Devourer ships filled their viewing screens. They were organic monsters that seemed to twist and writhe through space itself. Each ship pulsed with technology they had stolen from other civilizations. They were a horrible mix of living biology and machinery that showed how many civilizations they had already eaten and destroyed. "All ships, this is Admiral Kildong." His voice went out to every human ship in the fleet. "We're not the most advanced fleet in the galaxy. We don't have the best weapons or the strongest shields. But we have something those creatures don't understand. We're too stupid to know when we're supposed to give up." A dark chuckle went through the fleet as human crews made their final preparations. Weapons were charged up, reactors were pushed beyond safe limits, and damage control teams got ready for what seemed impossible. The human fleet was small compared to what the aliens had. They had basic weapons that shot simple projectiles. Their shields were powered by fusion reactors that the aliens considered ancient technology. Their ships were held together with welds and patches that would make alien engineers laugh. But there was something the aliens didn't understand about humans. When humans decided to do something, they didn't give up. Even when the odds were impossible, even when smart people said it couldn't be done, humans kept trying. "Admiral," came a voice from one of the ship captains. "Our weapons won't do much damage to those things. So then we'll have to get creative," Kildong replied. "Humans have been solving problems with whatever we had available for thousands of years. Today won't be any different. They're coming," Commander Park SEO reported, her voice steady and calm. "All ships, weapons free. For Earth. For humanity. For everyone who can't fight anymore." The alien representatives in the war room watched their screens in silence. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. These primitive humans, with their simple technology and small fleet, were actually going to try to stop an enemy that had destroyed the most advanced military force in galactic history. As the first Devourer ships came into weapons range, the last line of defense prepared to prove something important. Sometimes the most basic solution was the most effective one. Sometimes being too stubborn to quit was more powerful than having the best technology. The battle for the survival of all galactic civilization was about to begin. And it would be fought by the species everyone had considered the least important. The battle for the Terra defense grid started in a way that would make military experts shake their heads in disbelief. Instead of staying in formation and fighting like they were supposed to, the human fleet scattered in all directions like frightened birds. Captain Kim Soo drove his cruiser Harmony straight into the gravity field of a nearby asteroid. He used the huge rock as a shield, while his crew worked frantically to do something he was calling Plan Stupid. All across the human fleet, similar crazy scenes were happening as human commanders threw away 3,000 years of proper military tactics, engineering. "How much longer until we finish the changes?" Kim Soo called to Lee Hannah. She was hanging upside down in a maintenance tunnel, welding plasma pipes together with sparks flying everywhere. "Give me 2 more minutes to finish connecting these mining explosives to our torpedo tubes," she said with effort. "This is either going to be amazing or we're all going to die in a really dumb way." The Devourer ships moved through space like hungry predators. Their biomechanical bodies could adapt to fight against each human tactic in just minutes. But every time they learned something new, the humans changed their strategy completely. When regular kinetic weapons didn't work, Captain Park SEO ordered her crew to ram mining asteroids into enemy ship formations. When the Devourers learned to counter those attacks, Lieutenant Commander Yoondae started using his ship's garbage compactor to shoot compressed trash at almost light speed. "This is completely insane," muttered Dr. Song-hee from her position in the medical bay of the Harmony. "We're fighting a galactic-level threat with mining equipment and weapons we made up on the spot. Being insane is what makes us human," replied Chief Engineer Lee Hannah, wiping grease from her hands. "Besides, the other choice is dying with dignity, and where's the fun in that?" The real breakthrough came when Ensign Nam Woo, who was barely 20 years old and fresh from the academy, made an observation that would change the entire battle. "Captain, the Devourers adapt by studying our technology, right? But what if we use something they've never seen before?" Kim Soo raised an eyebrow. "What do you have in mind?" "Chemical rockets, sir. Solid fuel, pure momentum. Technology so old it's not even in their databases." Within hours, the human fleet had stripped every emergency thruster, escape pod motor, and maintenance drone from their ships. They strapped these ancient propulsion systems to everything they could find: spare hull plates, empty fuel tanks, even the cafeteria furniture. The Devourers, having just learned to counter plasma weapons and kinetic railguns, suddenly found themselves under attack by flying coffee makers and chairs powered by chemical rockets. Their biomechanical minds, designed to process and counter sophisticated technology, simply couldn't understand weapons that belonged in a museum. "I'm attaching rocket motors to kitchen equipment," reported one confused engineer over the comm. "Either this is the stupidest thing ever, or we're all geniuses." Commander Park SEO's voice crackled over the communication system as she personally piloted a cargo container loaded with explosives toward a Devourer command ship. "This is either The stupidest thing I've ever done, or the most brilliant? Probably both. The explosion took out 3 enemy ships and created a debris field that the humans immediately started using as more weapons. For the first time since the invasion began, the Devourer advance stopped moving forward. "Sir, they're actually retreating." From Sector 7, reported Communications Officer Park Jin with amazement in his voice. But the victory was costing them dearly. The Defiance was lost with everyone on board. The Resilience sacrificed itself to save a civilian transport ship. All across the fleet, human ships were being pushed beyond their limits, held together by nothing more than determination and creative welding. "Captain, our hull integrity is down to 30%, reported Lee Hanna. "We're basically flying in a metal can held together with hope and duct tape." "Then we better make sure our hope doesn't run out," Kim Soo replied grimly. The human tactics were working, but they were completely unpredictable. One ship would use mining lasers as weapons. Another would detonate their own fuel tanks as bombs. A third would use their artificial gravity generators to crush. Enemy ships, the Devourers, had conquered thousands of civilizations over millions of years. They had faced every type of weapon, every military strategy, every defensive formation that logical minds could create. But they had never faced an enemy that would strap rocket engines to office furniture and use it as a weapon. "Enemy formations are breaking apart," reported the tactical officer. "They seem... confused." "Good," said Admiral Kildong over the fleet communication. "Confused enemies make mistakes. And when they make mistakes, we hit them harder." Enemy began to withdraw. Admiral Kildong looked at the tactical display showing his damaged fleet. His ships were in ruins. His people were exhausted. But somehow the line had held. "Sir," reported Communications Officer Park Jin, "we're getting a message from Coalition Command. Admiral Dexmore wants to know... how we did it." Kildong smiled. "Grimly tell him we remembered something the rest of the galaxy forgot. Sometimes the most advanced technology is no match for refusing to give up." 3 weeks after the Battle of Terra Defense Grid, the Coalition Council met for the first time since the crisis started. The Great Meeting Chamber looked very different now. It used to be filled with proud representatives from advanced alien civilizations. Now it was a much sadder gathering. Empty chairs showed where species had lost their home worlds to the Devourer swarm. Other representatives sat quietly, carrying the shame of having run away from the fight. Admiral Kildong walked into the chamber by himself. His uniform showed the damage from battle. His left arm was covered in a medical healing sleeve, and his face looked like a man who was completely exhausted. He had carried the fate of the entire galaxy on his shoulders. Behind him, the Earth delegation was much smaller than before. Many humans had not survived the desperate defense. Admiral High Coordinator Valtham's voice was quiet and respectful. Her earlier panic had been replaced by something that looked like deep respect. "Please give us your report." Kildong turned on the holographic display that showed the current status of human forces. The numbers were terrible to look at. Of the 847 ships that had held the line against the enemy, only 203 were still working. The casualty reports were just as bad, minus 14,000 human military people had died, and countless more were wounded. "The Devourer swarm has moved back beyond the range of our sensors," he reported in a steady voice. "Our analysis shows they didn't retreat because we destroyed too many of their ships. They retreated because they could no longer predict what we would do next. Their learning systems were designed to counter normal technological warfare. They couldn't process what our scientists are calling creative desperation." Admiral Dexmore, his crystal-like features showing unusual emotion, leaned forward in his chair. "Admiral, on behalf of the Altarian High Command, I must ask, how did your people know to fight this way?" A bitter smile crossed Kildong's tired face. "We didn't know. We just refused to give up when any reasonable species would have surrendered. Humans have a saying, when you can't win by being smart, win by being too stubborn to lose." Dr. Songhee, who had been promoted to Chief Medical Officer of what was left of the human fleet, stood up to address the gathering. "Our study of Devourer technology shows they've met thousands of civilizations over millions of years. Each time they faced logical, predictable responses to their attacks. Defensive positions, technological countermeasures, orderly retreats. They never met a species that would ram garbage into their ships or use museum pieces as weapons. "The cost," whispered General Hexfell from her translator device. "Your losses are terrible." Captain Kim Soo, who now had the higher rank of Commodore since he was one of the few surviving senior officers, stood up to answer. "General, we knew the cost before we started fighting, but sometimes the only choice is between terrible losses and complete extinction. We chose to pay the price so others wouldn't have to." The chamber became completely silent as the weight of humanity's sacrifice settled over all the assembled representatives. These primitive newcomers had saved civilizations that had abandoned them. They had paid a price that their advanced allies had been unwilling to pay. Engineer Lee Hanna, her arms still in a cast from the battle, turned on another display. The Devourers left behind damaged ships and technology when they retreated. "We're already learning to use their adaptive systems for our own purposes. More importantly, we're developing new fighting methods based on being unpredictable rather than having superior technology." High Coordinator Valtham's tentacles moved in what humans were learning to recognize as deep respect. "The Coalition owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid. How can we honor your sacrifice?" Admiral Kildong looked at his surviving officers before answering. "Remember that the most advanced civilization means nothing without the will to defend it, and maybe next time someone volunteers to hold the line, don't assume they're too primitive to know what they're doing." As the meeting ended, representatives from across the galaxy came up to the human delegation. They didn't come with offers of charity or pity. Instead, they came with requests to study human military methods, a species that had once mocked Earth's primitive technology. Now wanted to understand the unconventional thinking that had saved them all. But in quiet moments, when the political ceremonies ended and the survivors gathered together, the humans mourned their lost friends, and ship's victory had come at a terrible price, and they carried the weight of being the galaxy's saviors. It was a responsibility they had never asked for, but had accepted without question. Captain Park Jin, who had been promoted to fill one of the many empty command positions, expressed the feeling that would define humanity's new role in galactic affairs. "We held the line because someone had to. Next time, we'll try to make sure we're not standing alone." The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about the value of primitive stubbornness, and humanity had learned that sometimes the greatest victories come with the heaviest costs. The war was over, but the memory of those who died would never be forgotten.